You're ready to be premature all over again.
Wow, that's impressive.
Quick
bro.
reset.
Yeah.
Quick reset.
Last night was Ramos Jizz.
Freudian slip.
Who knew the job was pro bono?
I was so high that I shit myself at some point.
Okay, I can still hear somebody. Everybody mute. Goddamn, you're killing me.
My SEAL Team 6 went to SEAL Team 12.
There's nothing wrong with punching above your weight.
The flames would get better.
Well,
I don't know what's
also-
worse. You're a ginger or you've been vaccinated.
You sit around and drink and solve the world's problems, right?
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The boys are back. We are in the studio. Los Cuatros Jinetes are here in the house. Looking forward to this one. It's going to be an interesting, and it's unfortunately going to hit a little too close to home for what we do here on the A Spirited Debate podcast. But we're going to dive in head first. It may be a shallow pool. We may get injured. Who the fuck knows? Who the fuck cares? Let's find out. Gentlemen, how's everybody doing?
Woot woot, motherfucker.
I didn't catch what either of you said, actually.
Aw.
Sorry.
I did that for Haas.
Okay.
Thanks, buddy.
It's pretty
Appreciate
wunderbar.
that.
Mac, you're being quiet.
Mir es geht sehr wunderbar, danke.
Hey, Mac, look up for me.
Oh,
There you
there
go.
it is. I was about to say,
Right here in
are
the
you
camera,
usually
bro.
used to seeing that part of his head?
No, he'd have to look down.
Oh, hey.
There you
Is that
go.
better?
Now, yes, now at least I feel like you're engaged.
No, we can still see you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow. He said it's bad enough we got to hear you and see you.
I know, right?
Look,
not
I'm
what I
happy
signed up for.
No, I'm happy everybody's here. It's been a long week. As you guys know, I've been busy working on remodeling the house. So, it's nice just to be able to step away, take a break, hang out with you guys. So here we are. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Drinks. Who wants to go first? Raise your hand.
I am drinking Bib and Tucker 6-year. There you
Bib.
go. Clean it easy. See ya.
On one ice cube.
One ice cube.
Okay.
I'm keeping it simple right now.
we should've
There's
done it.
nothing fucking wrong with that.
We should have done it.
Should have done it. Ah, well, fucking happens.
What, the one drink?
Yeah,
The
the
one-
one ingredient on a cube.
There you go.
I'm,
I'm okay with it.
I'm drinking Eagle Rare on a cube.
Are you?
See,
Why
we
is it-
should have fucking done it. We would have been organized, and we wouldn't have even known it.
I'm drinking Buffalo Trace on a cube.
See,
Oh, bro, this morning you said I got a good drink. So I didn't want to fuck it up for you.
all right. I'm drinking an añejo old fashioned.
Oh,
So,
sounds good.
Añejo tequila with some agave nectar. I'm using spiced cherry Woodford Reserve bitters,
Nice.
and I don't have any cherries, so that's why it's not garnished. It also
Yeah.
calls for like a little bit of an orange peel, but I
Orange
don't have
peel,
that.
right? You need to get the oil. All right.
Yeah.
So this is an añejo old fashioned,
Yes.
Bib and Tucker, Eagle Rare, Buffalo Trace. Grinch, you're the odd man out.
Mhm.
Look, in my defense, the reason I went with one ingredient on a cube is because I was busy tiling right up until the fucking show. So I'm like, need something.
That's fair.
So, all right,
There's
gentlemen,
photographic evidence of this as well.
there is,
Yeah.
and I wanted to make
It's
sure
looking
everybody
good,
knew.
too, by the way,
Not
bro.
fucking
Oh, it really
around.
is looking good.
Yeah, I'm ready. I've got everything tiled. Now I got to go back after it dries, probably tomorrow afternoon and grout, and then hopefully it'll be done there. I got a few extra pieces I have to cut, so you'll see gaps in the picture because
Yeah, I
those
saw that
tiles
around
have to be cut.
the outlets. And
How's that little tile slicing thing? I've never used one of those before.
The tile
How's that
cutter,
working out? Yeah.
it's awesome, unless you have to cut something very small. If it's not, small cuts, works like a champ. I'm able to just
Yeah.
breeze through it. But
so proud of this manly conversation going on right now.
Right.
right.
Nick Offerman would be so proud.
That's it. Well, you know what? So then, cheers, gentlemen.
If only we
Cheers
were
to
talking
all of
about
you.
plain
Salud.
wood.
Cheers.
Roast.
And I have not eaten today, so
Oh, that should be fun.
we'll see how this goes. All right, Grinch. In terms of this particular topic, like you early in the week, you put out some stuff, and then I put out some stuff, and we kind of went back and forth. But I'm going to let you kind of tease out what the episode is before we jump into it, so that everybody's aware of what we're talking about, brother. So go ahead.
Sure. So there are two court cases that went before the Supreme Court. I believe they both did, Haas. I don't know. I don't mean to put you on the spot either, but Gonzalez versus Google and Twitter versus Tomnay. And the reason it's so interesting is the Gonzalez. Let me see if I get this right. So Gonzalez family brought the case based on losing a family member to attack in Paris, in which I think their son was killed.
Daughter.
And it was a daughter. Okay.
Yeah, I want to say she was like 23 years old and she was studying abroad. Yeah.
And the Twitter versus Taamneh, Taamneh, in case I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, concerns. I believe the incident was in Turkey,
In Istanbul,
but it was another American citizen. And so, what both these families are saying, and this is kind of coming at social media broadly, is that the targeted ad algorithms / find like-minded groups is what helped ISIS in those, that support them, locate one another and eventually coalesce to where they could plan events and that led to their family member's death. Now, these two cases are targeted towards Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which was created in 1996. It's a law that arguably supports the economic models of social media and other interactive websites hosting third-party content. Some have referred to it as the Magna Carta of internet law, because it set the conditions to try to allow for this new thing known as the internet to really just catch fire and take off. Where this comes into play is that act protected companies from third-party content. So if I'm an ISIS person paying to be on a YouTube,
well, the way you stated that, it protected them from third-party. It protected them from the liability surrounding third-party content. Yes,
right. And yeah, it exempts websites from legal liability when harm is caused by that content.
Right.
Now, Section 2333 of the Anti-Terrorism Act, as amended, allows U.S. nationals injured by an act of international terrorism perpetrated by a designated foreign terrorist organization to sue those who sponsor the attacks. So that's kind of where we are. These two cases went before the Supreme Court, and it's probably has the most potential to impact the internet, unlike any case that's ever come before. And with that, I'll see, Haas,
what we're
if you got
talking
anything
about.
to add.
Gotcha. Let me jump in real quick just to kind of sum up some of what you said. So Section 230 of the Decency Act, the 26 words that are in Section 230 are kind of the basis for what we're talking about. And it says, and I quote, "No provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as a publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider." Sum up, basically what that means is any platform that hosts third-party content can't be held responsible for what comes of that third-party content. So YouTube can't be held responsible for any content created by posters of videos. It's why Spotify isn't held responsible for Joe Rogan's podcast, even though they host it. I mean, those are the types of things we're talking about. And based on these two cases, they do want to now hold platforms responsible. And if this goes through, depending on how it's ruled on, now those companies will be responsible for that third-party content potentially.
And so now you will see a lot of filtering of that content, because
Right.
why would I take the risk of getting sued? So you've now created, and I'm drawing a blank for the word I'm looking for. Somebody much smarter than me will fill it in a second. But
well, there's three others on this call,
and they're all smarter than me. So you're creating a filter basically where they're going to just say, we're only going to show you what we want to show you and what we feel comfortable showing you. So it's almost a form of censorship. You're forcing them to censor things now.
Protect themselves.
I didn't say this. No. I didn't say this in the brief, intro there, but the key to it all is the way these platforms have built their advertising platforms, because that's what's tied to all of this, and that's what generates a tremendous amount of their revenue. And so the concern is, if that falls apart, these platforms are not going to be able to sustain in their current form.
Well, they wouldn't, right? There's no incentive for them to do so, right? So here's what we're faced with, in my opinion, is somebody needs to be liable, right? Like somebody needs to take the onus and have to be responsible for filtering out the bullshit that shouldn't be out there to begin with. And a lot of people on the far right or and the conservatives are arguing, well, they seem to have no problem doing this when it comes to political stances and political views, right? So why can't they do it for, things that are dangerous and harmful and cantankerous in other ways? The problem is that if the Supreme Court rules that Section 230 is no longer valid or is not up to date or accurate, and then deems it appropriate for, these companies like Google and Twitter and whoever, Meta, to be responsible, they're just going to shut everything down, right? They're going to have to shut, like legit, turn it all off, right? Because how do you leave the lights on and open yourself up to all this liability that you wouldn't even physically be able to go through and defend? Like, I mean, these companies would be bankrupt almost overnight.
And I think that's the question right there, right? And I think Grinch started to kind of touch on it a little bit earlier, right? What's the pivot here, right? Because they have to have some sort of funding to keep themselves afloat, right? And so right now they're running algorithms to sell ad and link people together. If you turn that off, and I don't know the answer to this, right? What I feel like there is, what's the next alternative to Google funding itself if it's not some sort of algorithm based advertising?
Well,
do they start right? Right now your Gmail's free.
Do they charge for that?
Do you start saying, okay, well, guess what? Now it's $20 a month for Gmail,
Well,
or your Facebook account is now $50 a month, or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, what's interesting is because of these 26 words in 1996, all of your providers, the publishers who house these things, I mean, they built a business model based on specific criteria that they were never going to be held responsible. Right. If that changes, like everybody here is now saying, they're going to be forced to change their business model because what's currently in place will no longer be sustainable because they are opening themselves up to liability they didn't have to worry about before.
Well, not just that. How can they continue business if this landscape changes in such a drastic manner or fashion? How can they continue business without proper guidance from the U.S. government, right? Like the Section 230 is going to have to be revamped, or something else is going to have to be amended, or or they're just got to come out with new regulation for it, right? Because how do they, as a business, how do they go forward?
First of all, those are some incredibly sexy legs. Second of all,
you lost him. The legs threw him.
I did. God damn it! And I had like a really, really good.
So I'm curious about.
So mull over. I'll come back to it.
I'm curious. I just have one question, Haas. You may not know the answer to this. I know your years in the legal field. How far in advance? Like this is landing before the Supreme Court. Let's say tomorrow. How far in advance are these companies aware that this lawsuit is even in existence?
Oh yeah, they know.
This wasn't yesterday.
Years
they said,
no.
Okay,
no.
So they could be adjusting
I believe
their
one
model.
of those lawsuits was filed in 2015 or 16. The other one was like in 17 or 19. Like, it's very rare that the Supreme Court hears a case that is less than 7 to 8 years old.
So the companies have been aware that this is on the docket somewhere through a federal system. So 100%. They could be putting in place safeguards to adjust their model based on whatever ruling.
Well, they could if they're motivated.
But there's money and time and effort to do that, and they're just hoping it'll get ruled the way they want.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and that's why they have lobbyists.
And it's worth. I mean, I kind of think of this as like we've talked about with the death sentence. Like I'm broadly against it, but if it involved me personally, I would understand and want the person dead. So just to give them to give the families that are involved with this their just due. So Gonzalez, I think Haas, you said this. I just had it in front of me. What happened?
It was Haas's legs that threw you off too.
Yeah, I scrolled. Okay, the case was brought by family members of Nohemi Gonzalez, a 23-year-old U.S. citizen killed in December of 2015 at an ISIS shooting at Paris's La Belle, I'm sure I'm not going to say this right, Equipe Bistro. And they say Google's YouTube service knowingly permitted and recommended via algorithms inflammatory ISIS-created videos that allegedly played a key role in recruiting Gonzalez's attackers. In the Twitter case, so the case was brought by.
Hold on.
Sorry, I'll just give you the tease of both cases real quick. was brought by relatives of Nawras, Nawras, al-Assaf, a Jordanian man killed in the 2017 ISIS attack in Turkey, who alleged the social media site served as ISIS's, quote, vehicle of choice in spreading propaganda.
Okay.
So we have a theme, right?
Mac,
There's
what were you
clearly
gonna
a
say?
theme.
I forgot my question. No. So they're not actually suing Google for, the direct attack. They're saying that, Google allowed these people at ISIS to come together.
They gave them the means to
easier.
which, yep.
Right. Because of the way their platform
I don't know.
operates.
That
and
just seems
algorithms.
like a slippery slope.
So let me ask
going down.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a fundamental question of the group. At the stake, at the heart of this, right, is the foundation of
Censorship.
big tech. Should companies like a Google, like a Twitter, like a Meta, or Spotify, whatever, should those companies be legally responsible for any content their users post? I'm just asking the room. I'm curious.
Well, here's what they do. Is
I'm going to say
sure,
you have to be, because if you look at Napster, they held Napster
responsible.
If they held them responsible,
well,
and again,
like
all they were doing was
Craigslist was responsible, but they changed and they evolved. And
but where else are you going to get your wet work done if you don't go to Craigslist, though, right?
Fair play.
A man speaking from experience.
Yeah, so I'm going to answer your question, but I'm just going to say this first. On Wednesday in the Twitter case, the plaintiffs said that they should be permitted to hold the social media company, as well as sites like Google's YouTube and Meta's Facebook, legally responsible for, quote, knowingly, unquote, providing substantial assistance to ISIS by hosting the terrorist regime's content through, quote, willful blindness, unquote.
Well, and there's the problem, right? Knowingly and willful.
Well, and so where I stand on this is the law doesn't currently, it isn't written in such a way as to say that they would be responsible. So there wasn't anything that had happened to generate that change. And so it probably was a blind spot. I don't know that any of us realize the extent of the evil of ISIS when it first, I mean, let's not forget they were referred to as the JV League, when they first got spun up when Obama was still the presidency.
And I think they've made, for lack of a better term, they really have made great use of the internet.
Yes.
In recruiting, right? I think that's kind of the fundamental point they're trying to make in some of these cases.
Yeah, I mean, it was slick. It was well produced. It was absolutely fucking gruesome. I mean, you had beheadings online, of an actual human being.
But let me ask you this though: people were clicking on that and watching it, right?
Yes.
So I mean, there's a reason. I don't want to call it clickbait because that's really not the proper term for it. But why wouldn't Google put it out there? So if I know millions of people are going to click on this, right or wrong, and I think we all know it's wrong, it's going to drive more viewers to our site.
Well, and I think that's the argument the family's making, right? Is you didn't care what it was, you just saw it was getting hits. Right. It wasn't until we really started digging into what was happening that you were like, oh shit, like we're hosting. I mean, it could be child pornography, it could be all kinds of crazy shit that, based on the name, if they don't know that they need to look for it, they just didn't. It was just a machine that was running and an algorithm that noted what you picked up on and guided you there.
But Chat GPT is not going to be a problem at all.
Yeah. So I guess my point is, I think it's an after the fact case.
Yes, it's kind of a going forward.
Right. I'm like, the law didn't say that we were liable as it's written.
Yeah, I don't think you can obviously you can do anything you want, but I think to your point, you can't retroactively say, okay, we're going to go back now and hold these companies accountable for this.
Yeah, what's the term?
Going forward?
Well,
but I'm saying,
because the law does say platforms to remove content considered obscene or objectionable, and this we could all agree is
considered. Well,
a beheading is obscene and or objectionable.
According to
and the point is they should have known better, and their algorithm should have been better, and they should have adjusted accordingly faster than what they did.
Okay, but again,
so now they're playing censors and they're playing God over all the content, which
They're
is
already doing that, bro.
kind
They
of
should be.
counterproductive of what the internet is for.
Okay, but again, back to my question: from from today, should they be held accountable? Let's assume this ruling comes down. All three of you are sitting on the Supreme Court, and you got a rule. Should they be held responsible?
I will be honest and say
I'd like to abstain, please.
You've got to balance the impact. I was looking for this quote. So Justice Alito said, I'll read this intro because I think it's well written. Samuel Alito of the Supreme Court asked this week what may be to millions of the average internet users the most relatable question to come out of a pair of high-stakes oral arguments. Quote, would Google collapse and the internet be destroyed? Alito asked a Google attorney on Tuesday. Quote, if YouTube and therefore Google were potentially liable for the content its users posted. Unquote. And I mean, and that's what it kind of comes down to is I think they are significantly concerned about undoing Section 230. Just wholesale and saying, yeah, you're liable for it all.
Well,
I think
because
answer, right?
Hold on.
Well,
Haas, go ahead. Hold on, Haas. No, I'm sorry. Hold on, Mac.
Mac.
Haas,
go Haas.
I know I'm concerned, Mac, because you're going to forget, but Haas, please.
I don't know what I was going to say. I'm just kidding.
Fuck.
Here's the problem. The problem is that you can't wholesale do anything, right? Like going far left or far right is not going to solve the goddamn thing. It's just going to make the situation worse one way or the other. What you have to do is you have to find a way to either build upon what's already there or roll it back and rescale up more accurately to the current times. And how exactly you do that, I'm not sure. But here's what I do think. I think at some point in time, these companies have to have a dog in the fight. They have to be interested in the impact that this information, what the information is and how it disseminates out throughout the interwebs. Because if they don't, then there's no incentive for them to give a fuck.
So let me play devil's advocate here for a minute. Because we live in a very litigious society, everybody wants to sue everybody for everything. So I've gotten really big into watching, smoked meat videos. I had to kind of preface that. I didn't want to just say meat videos with this group. Smoked
meat didn't save you.
I was about to say, bro, that's not getting you any points either.
Anyway, well, on YouTube. And so, so I watched this video and this guy, recommends this grill brush. I go out and buy it. I use it. A bristle comes off, gets lodged in my throat. Can I now hold YouTube liable? No. Should I be able to hold YouTube liable? I think no, but because of what this is saying, I clearly could.
Yeah, but those are extreme. And I get
but that's the problem, though. Is that's the world we live in, where people will go to the extreme.
So use the extreme case.
What you said, you can't make wholesale changes because everybody's going to take advantage of them.
Well, I will tell you one thing that I was reading earlier this week that potentially comes out of this is one of the things, Mac, you've mentioned. I think we've all mentioned the word algorithm.
Smoked meat.
Algorithm. That's 2 words. Smoked meat's 2 words. Grinch, I'll use Grinch as an example. He loves to go on YouTube and he loves to look up music videos or concert footage or whatever, right? He does that 3, 4, 5 times. And suddenly when he goes to YouTube, his top 5 or 8 are all concert videos because the algorithm is doing that. One of the things that potentially comes out of this is that goes away. And what they're saying is the algorithm won't be used and you won't start receiving like-minded videos in your feed. You're going to have to physically go out.
I don't know that I like that, though.
Maybe you go do some due diligence so it saves someone's life. So you get rid of some convenient. You know what? It's the same thing of us basically having to get butt-ass naked and walk bare through TSA so that like
some of us like
guns and weapons don't make it on the planes, which, by the way, that's
that article.
Sidebar.
Yeah,
we need to be talking about that at some point, right?
Get naked in TSA. That's a thing.
Well, that too.
All the guns that are being confiscated. But my point is, this is the same thing. We're giving up an inconvenience for safety, for the betterment and the good of other people we don't even know.
But let me.
You meant giving up convenience, not inconvenience. You're giving up the convenience of that algorithm,
right?
Which is going to put what it thinks you want to see in front of you, and of course.
We've got so we go look at, say, school shootings. They go and put all these metal detectors at all these schools. What do we still have? Oh, school shootings.
No, you'd have school shovelings maybe, But you wouldn't
No,
have
my
school
point being,
shootings.
you still have school shootings, even at these schools that have metal detectors.
Yeah, but one is treating symptoms, the other's treating the cause.
Right.
Right. So there's two different situations, right? I mean, we're talking about fundamentally changing a law that will dictate how things are disseminated from an information standpoint so that we can get rid of some of these obscene and objectionable things and break up ties, communication ties from networks of criminal organizations, right? From a mass global, literal global.
But here's
way,
the where do you draw the line?
Well,
I mean, clearly, right? It's we all agree here, right, that is obscene, obnoxious, shouldn't be on there. But
Yeah,
now you got other people that can say, well, but I find this obscene, even though Haas finds it, just a regular Friday night, right?
And that's where I think you hope highly educated 9 people help draw that line. Because to your point, there was a kill, a mass casualty event. And then there's I didn't like what was written in a Yelp review, which is potentially it's all the way down to that level. So we talk about frivolous lawsuits.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Wikipedia. I didn't agree with the research that was done here. It's
which is shit because then how do you have what you have to go through from a metadata standpoint to get back to find out what's edited on a Wikipedia page?
Yeah, it's just
Jesus, bro.
it just can't happen. I mean, it just can't happen.
But we've talked
let's
about
learn a lesson and maybe draw some new lines and protections, but you can't wholesale throw out 230.
I was gonna say you have to be very specific in what you're going to say. You can't just say you're going to be held liable for all your content.
Yeah, this needs
I think it has to be
not a chainsaw.
Yeah, right. It has to be you're going to be held liable for this content and this content and this content. Be very strategic in what you're going to hold them liable for. And again, like everything else we said, right? That needs to be a living, breathing document. That needs to, be addressed again, in 10 years when all of this, because again, in 1996, I think somebody said when this was written, nobody had any clue this is what the internet was going to look like today, right? It took you 8 hours to download a song at that point, right? And now we have streaming services, right? And people connecting all over the world. So just like with the Constitution, we've talked about it, right? It needs to be a living, breathing, ever-changing document. And when you're talking about technology, it's going to have to be updated quickly on the fly because that changes almost every week.
Well, here's my concern with this situation. And again, like if the algorithm's repealed and doesn't exist and you have to go and search things, that's fine. I mean, we've talked about this before on this show many times. Like if you're getting a news source from one outlet and it's showing up in your feed continually, right? You're kind of pigeonholing yourself into just one thing. You're not seeing the broader picture, that type of thing. Is much like in 96 when they wrote this law, not understanding what the ramifications might be almost 30 years later. If the Supreme Court makes that ruling, and this is one of those things that, Jason Houck has mentioned, we're never going to know the impact until we get some distance from it. So once this ruling comes down, we don't know how the internet may change depending on how they rule, what ramifications may come from whatever decision they make, left or right. So I don't know how you accurately even prepare for that because you don't know how it's going to shift.
And that's why I say, I mean, it would just be seismic. And I'll use a benign example that is in this article. Let's say you're searching for a job. Can't use an algorithm. It's like, here's a job. Well, no, I need it to be geographically oriented. No, that's what the algorithm did.
So you're saying if they remove that algorithm aspect.
Right. I just
find it's going to cause you to have to do a little more work.
Or does it, the South American jungle, but it's a job. That's all you asked for was a job.
Well, come on. Now you're just going to the opposite extreme.
But that's the point.
You can draw
that's what's going to
happen. When you stop telling the algorithm to learn, because we don't, keep in mind, we've never seen the coding for the algorithm.
Yeah,
it's only in the European
supposedly
Union.
It's very complicated.
Yeah, it's only like European Union that they're pushing to see that code. So these other companies keep that closely guarded. Microsoft said in its brief, it would be if you were on LinkedIn, we couldn't even tell you by region, by job type, and so forth. We would have to dumb down the algorithm so much that you're overly scripting. Like, I want a job that is located right here.
That's good. That's what you have Chat GPT for now.
Or Craigslist was an example of, we would just give you this is their quote, an undifferentiated morass of information. It would be of no value to you.
To the point you were going to, you would basically be the person writing that code now for your algorithm.
Right.
Because you would have to put in so many, so much criteria to really get what you want.
Yeah, you just wander into that thing that's called the internet, and it no longer has some guardrails that you don't even realize are there to help you navigate it.
So I hear what I'm hearing
1994, 1995 again. What's up?
Grinch is going to be frustrated if they do remove the algorithm. If he's got to then hunt for concert footage, he's going to be a little pissed off. He's like, now I got to eat up time doing this. I like having it in my feed. So you clearly like that aspect,
or
the
with
convenience
a couple of
it.
tweaks, I get to what I'm looking for. Because like you said, Haas, it was all about being more convenient. And yes, are they collecting data? Are they learning more about you? Yes, we all know it's happening. So we need to ignore that other baggage and focus on what this case was about, which is, did it enable like-minded terrorists to commit an act? And is Google, Twitter, etc.
How do you ever prove
responsible for that?
Well, here's the bottom line, though. Internet or not, they're going to get together. A lock on your door keeps the honest people out, right? A criminal is going to get in one way or the other.
And see, this is where I somewhat delve into your world there, Haas, of like, if I'm a lawyer, that's what I'm arguing. It's like chain of liability and responsibility. Like, could you prove that this is the only way that could have happened?
Well, causal liability. That's a big freaking thing, right? Like, when you think about liability, we're taught that think of links in a chain, and if this is where the chain broke, is the closer link you are to that breaking point makes you more liable.
But there's also a thing called unintended consequences.
Yeah, but
you can't account for.
Here's the thing. What I believe is that I believe these companies aren't, on the face, they're not liable, but are they doing enough to mitigate these things from happening, which they do have a duty and a responsibility to do? And my guess is probably not. They've probably gotten pretty lazy about it. And they're probably doing like what a lot of insurance companies do, where they're hedging their bets and they're saying, well, you know what? We're going to let this train keep rolling down the tracks, and we don't care what damage it's creating until something big enough, and as Grinch has talked about this in the past, until there's something big enough to force us to make a change, a pain threshold is met, we're fine. This train can just keep barreling down the tracks. We'll keep raking in the cash. We don't give a fuck.
Is this
I'm going to go off on a sidebar here, though? But why are they the ones responsible for monitoring all of this?
They are hosting.
Why
they are the host of this platform?
Well,
okay. If you go
I host a party, does that mean
let me ask you this:
100%.
You go to a concert. If you go to a concert and there's an incident in that concert and you're injured, do you not then turn around and sue the person who hosted that concert?
I was about to say. Grinch hosted a party in his basement in 1994. It's a phenomenal blowout. But if somebody got hurt, Grinch would be responsible because it's on his property.
Well,
or technically his mother would have been responsible. So
here's my question I asked back, though. Is Google responsible for that attack, or are the fucking people who carried out the attack responsible?
The people who carried it out.
Why does that have to be either or?
Well, that's why one of the lawyers is asking, if push came to shove at any incident that happens from here on, are you suing the person that perpetrated it, or Google because you know it has deep pockets?
You're suing
going
both
after fucking Google.
You're going after both because you want to hit, you want to throw as much against the wall and see how much money you can get back, because we're greedy motherfuckers.
Well, no offense, but Google is located in California, and that terrorist is located in a cave in fucking
it's a little
Middle
easier
East.
Google,
it's a little easier to find Google and hold them accountable.
We found Hussein, right? So
well,
we should be able to find that terrorist.
Effort. Finding Google would have been a lot easier.
Let me throw this out at you too, and this is from 2017 when we're asking a company to do something. 300 hours or 525,600 minutes of video uploaded per minute. Multiply that by 60, and you get 3,153,600 minutes of video uploaded per hour. Multiply that by 24, and you get 75,686,400 minutes of video uploaded per day. Multiply that by 365.
YouTube. Right.
And you see
it becomes an astronomical number
that we're telling them they have to screen.
Well, but you can't say just because people are uploading too much, I'm not going to be responsible because people are uploading too much and it would be too much work.
No,
Yeah.
but if
But
I'm
what
YouTube
would
that-
and you're
what would that
uploading,
look like?
yeah, but
Oh,
if you're uploading,
that's not my
come
problem.
on,
That's
bro.
YouTube's
These companies
problem.
have so much ridiculous money and so
Hold
many
on,
smart,
hold on,
talented
hold on.
people. They can figure out ways. See,
But
to me,
they're all
what would you look
hemorrhaging
for?
employees right
this
now.
is just
Like, there's no
defense
tomorrow.
attorneys throwing a bunch of big fucking numbers at the court, going, "Oh, the sky is falling. We use so much data. How could we ever deal with it?" Well, you know what? Figure it the fuck out. That's your job, dude.
What would you look
here,
for if it had never happened before?
hold on. Here's the issue, though, and this is, I think, what these companies are looking at is you're talking, let's say, 1 billion minutes worth of content uploaded a year. I mean, that's just astronomical in terms of time. So I think that's why they're saying, well, we'll just remove the algorithm that puts like-minded shit in your feed,
Well,
as opposed to having to
fellas,
staff up.
It's
fellas,
still there, so you can find
AI
it. So what
is
have you
here.
really accomplished?
AI is here. I use it all the time.
I don't use
Okay,
it at all.
there's
Fuck Watson.
stuff. There's stuff out here, with these review platforms. There's ways that they can cull through that data, and they could do it faster and cheaper than they've ever been able to do it before. So it's just bullshit argument that they're making.
Well,
They don't want to change the model.
but so when they go automated, and I'll use an example of Dan Cummings, who does Time Suck, because I don't know where it stands now. I haven't been keeping up with it. But he had a group on Facebook that got banned. And he used to say it's, Tom, the real boy, every time he tried to inquire as to why he got banned. He never got a human being to ever explain it, and they had to totally recreate the group. He still doesn't know what was supposedly offensive. It just went away. So to me, that's what happens. And maybe that's the safer play if you're a Facebook, is you're like, I just don't care. We're going to get 1,000 questions of why this went down. It's the safer play. It'll protect us from liability.
Well, but I mean, I guess to some extent, is Facebook responsible for saying why they don't post something?
Well,
I don't know.
This was in response to the perceived, they're sending you you remember we talked about this? They're sending you bullshit that pisses you off because it gets you engaged. And then there's all this garbage and hate online, like racism and so forth. So they create tag words and things like that just catch it, and it just boots it, because that's a safer play. I mean, that's really what the answer becomes, instead of, because humans can't do this. They simply cannot. It's too much.
Yeah.
And new shit comes out all the time that you're like, when? Like
You're constantly
weirdo shit. I mean, I remember the video where there was like that weirdo, some creature, Momo, telling kids to go put shit in the oven and turn it on. Like, how would I know until I stumbled on that? What do I put in Momo and oven? Like, there's just.
But again, I come back to, why is it Google's responsibility to censor that as opposed to the society, raising kids that are smart enough to figure it the fuck out?
You're talking about the difference.
I
between
know,
treating the symptoms
Disney
and
World in the
treating
sky.
right? And you're not wrong. I don't think you're wrong. I think we absolutely need to be treating the cause of the problem, not just the symptoms. But right now, it's the symptoms that we have on display.
Well, and the other issue is going to be, in terms of that algorithm, part of that is related to the SEO of the content and the tags for the content. So when you're uploading a video, if you're applying tags to it, what this video is about, those are going to be the things that the search engine's using to locate videos. So, if Grinch is typing in concert footage live and Rammstein, like, it's going to be looking for Rammstein concerts and live footage.
It's almost like clicking on a link for something that ends up being a big black cock.
Right.
Not that that's ever happened.
But what I'm saying is a
You're
lot of these.
welcome.
No, we're really not.
But I'm just saying, if you typed in smoke meat and you got a video of a big black dick, you're gonna be like, wait, what? What the fuck?
Is
Why
he?
did I get
Well,
that?
no, what?
Oh, I mean, he may not.
What did you?
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
that's what I would. What do you think
That's
I was
what you're
searching for?
Yeah, I mean-
Sorry. I think potentially how this ruling comes down is going to dictate some monumental things, much like what they did with Roe versus Wade, right? And it's the interesting thing is states front-loaded things in terms of legislation to prepare for Roe v. Wade. I haven't heard anything in terms of Google or Meta, these social media platforms, how they're preparing for this eventuality in terms of the ruling on this. But if they find a way to do away with Section 230 and they hold these platforms responsible, as we said at the outset, it is going to fundamentally change the way the internet functions.
Well, yeah, I think that I don't think anybody here is going to argue that if this passes, it's going to change the internet drastically. And I think maybe to the point Grinch was trying to make earlier, nobody knows what that's going to look like. Is it going to be for the better or for the worse?
Yeah, I mean, this is really interesting because, I mean, those statistics I gave you are actually dated. It's over 500 minutes of content uploaded a minute now. But why is YouTube so popular and it's able to generate billions of views every day? To understand that, you need to take a deeper look at its numbers. YouTube is not only available, but is also localized in over 100 countries. So it's oriented and guided and shaped by language and culture to know what to feed you based on where you are.
Right, because I'm assuming you guys, there's location services depending on where you're searching. I don't know, like for Mac, I operate off an Apple. Everything is location services, right? Do you allow or not allow your location to be dictated in terms of what you're searching for? It's one of those things where, you know, they may remove some of those conveniences because it will reduce their liability in terms of things showing up in front of people.
Well, and you look at, you look at most of the apps now, I think, with the latest version of iOS on Apple, they require you to allow the app to track your data and your history. So you have the ability to opt out from an app level as well. And I think a lot of that, comes from the European Union and a lot of their
approach with GDPR.
Their approach with GDPR. So it's starting to spill over into other countries because it's just easier to go to the extreme and just code for everybody than it is have a bunch of different codes and apps.
Right. Grinch is reading intently.
So did we fix the problem already?
I think we did. I don't know how, but maybe.
Just shut the internet down.
What would happen if we did that? I mean, we just said,
we've all seen The Last of Us, right? That's pretty much what I think is going to happen.
There's at least a generation or two, maybe three, that would just lose their shit.
They cannot function.
They would not be able to function. They would lose.
They wouldn't be able to find their way to the grocery store.
No.
Honestly, I think Gen X, we'd be the last functional generation.
I think so.
I have a nephew that drives, and he has to use a map app every time because he doesn't know where he's going.
Well,
he's been to this location hundreds of times from one place to the other. You can't get there without a map app? Nope.
So I do use a map app, even going places I do know, because of the ability to know traffic conditions.
Yes.
Right. But I think to the point you're trying to make, right, if I didn't have it, I could still get to where I needed to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. I might be stuck in traffic.
And it's funny because
when I was going back to learn the law, they taught us how to do research online. But one of the things they taught you was how to go use the books at the library too, to conduct your research on case law. Because if something happens to the internet, you still need to be able to do it the old-fashioned way.
Right. You still have a job to do.
Let me ask you a question. How out of date are those books now? Have they been kept up to date?
The legal books, they still churn those out. People still have physical copies. Libraries, law libraries still maintain. Regular libraries still maintain. No, they're not messing around with that.
Their disaster recovery plan.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
That thing I was staring at when we were quiet was, what if you hit on something that becomes the basis of a lawsuit, or you retweet it?
Well, I don't think you can. If you actively engage in it, I think all bets are off at that point, right? So if you click on and now I start getting additional feeds or videos based off of what I clicked on for, you have to take some ownership now.
Right, because you're not protected legally, right?
The potential nightmare scenario was affirmed in Tuesday's oral argument when Justice Amy Coney Barrett asked Eric Schnapper, an attorney going up against Google, to explore the implications of his legal theory. Schnapper represented the family of Nohemi Gonzalez, an American student killed in 2015. The Gonzalez family is alleged that Google should be held liable. We already know all this. So Amy Coney Barrett said, if you go on Twitter and you're using Twitter and you retweet or or you say, check this out, Barrett said, on your theory, I'm not protected. I'm not protected by Section 230. Schnapper agreed, saying, that's content you've created.
Yeah, because now but you could say because everybody's liked something, right? At this point in the world, everybody's been on the internet and liked something. So you can immediately say, well, based on that one like 5 years ago,
Okay.
that's what's kind of
What if
snowed your algorithm to bring
what
you
if
this
you go to a
beheading.
food? What if you go to a food festival, right? And it's hosted by a coliseum, and they've got food trucks all around the coliseum, right?
Is it all smoked meat?
Yes,
It could be. I mean, according to Mac, it would be. And you go and you get sick from one of the food trucks, and you went to that specific food truck because somebody you know on social media liked it and said you're going to love this food. All right, you're clearly going to go after the food truck. You're clearly going to go. You're clearly going to go after the person who liked it.
Here's
right?
the first
who
problem.
suggested it. Aren't you going to also
Get
go
on the
after the
fucking
organizers
toilet,
and
shit
who
yourself
hosted
out.
the event?
And call it a day and just don't go back to the food truck. You already you proved my point
what if it
what
killed
is
you?
the problem with this
What if it
society.
killed you? What if it killed you? What if it killed your daughter?
Then you're not putting a lawsuit up if
That's
you're
not
dead.
what you said, though. You said you got
Look,
sick.
like he's like, I'm adding caveats. You're dead. You're on the moon.
Well, I mean, we're talking about the seriousness of this. Someone died, right? Like, so what if
Yeah.
someone you loved died from this food event? Wouldn't you go after anybody you could go after? Most assuredly, wouldn't you go after the person who organized and hosted the event?
Well, if Google's got in,
depends.
Because
yeah,
but for
but-
them, the event doesn't happen.
yeah, but let's
But I can't hold them if they organized the event and they invited 100 food trucks, and we went to one food truck and she died.
Okay.
I cannot hold the organizer.
You say that.
Yes, I
You're
can.
right, you're right. Okay, listen.
I should not
Here's the
hold
next
the
level
organizer.
of this.
I should hold
Here's
that
the next
truck.
level of this. The same person continues to host these events every new venue with the same food truck, knowing it's killed somebody.
I don't know who you're looking at.
Did I break you guys or something? Like,
No,
Broke the internet.
with what Mac is saying.
I think
about the
then you're
organizers.
talking, willful negligence, right? If they know that food truck has caused, death, then yes, I think you can hold them responsible at that point. But I think that's back to Grinch's point, right?
So let me
That's
ask you a
after
question.
the fact. I can't go back and hold them responsible for something they didn't know about.
yeah, but come on, that's the whole point, right? Is Google's known, right? Like they know,
Hold on.
ISIS is bad. Have they changed their algorithms? Have they shut this shit down?
So let me ask a question, and it's an easy question. Why do we not hold gun manufacturers responsible?
Bro, I'm all about it.
Why
I'm
do we not
mad at you.
hold tobacco manufacturers responsible?
Oh, no. Tobacco manufacturers have been held responsible. I've worked on big tobacco litigation. I promise you.
Well,
And yet they still churn
But-
out.
Guns don't
Tobacco.
kill
no,
people.
no,
People
no, no. We
kill
need to
people.
clarify that wasn't part of that based on they falsely represented the health impacts of the product.
Well, they were, Joe Camel, right? They were targeting youth and young people.
Right,
But
but
my
they
point is-
also were affecting the overall perception
Well,
of its health impact.
Right.
Right.
What
And
happened is
again-
documentation came out proving they knew the shit was super, super addictive, and they doubled down on that instead of reeling it back in.
But again, okay, gun manufacturers. How many school shootings have we had? How many mass shootings have we had? A concert shooting in Las Vegas.
But the
manufacturers
gun
held responsible?
manufacturer didn't kill those people.
Yeah, but Google didn't murder somebody in Paris either. That's the point that got made earlier in this show. But their algorithm helped drive people together, which led to those deaths. So my point being,
But they were gonna find each other.
something. If they knowingly knew something and they didn't do anything to change it,
Well,
shouldn't they be liable?
I mean,
That's
are
my
they going
question.
to ever
That's
admit
my
that
question.
they knowingly knew something?
Does it
No.
admit it? You can prove it. If it could ever be proven through documentation, metadata,
They're
whatever it's going to
shredding
take,
those documents as we speak.
bro. It's
For
all
7
digital.
years
No,
they've
no,
been
no. It's all
shredding stuff.
digital now. It's not documents anymore. It's all digital
Oh,
information.
cookies
One-
and footprints.
So here again, so my question to you is this: if it ever can be proven that Google knew and didn't change the algorithm, are they not liable?
They absolutely would be. Should be.
Okay.
Should
okay.
be.
Right. So then the next question is if we do that, if we make them liable and all these other companies liable, what the fuck does that do to the internet?
Nobody knows. That's the
well,
problem.
Yeah, well,
to me, that's
Right.
that's where I deviate to a degree, which is
I still want my concert
they aren't
footage.
liable for all the content that makes it on. It's what do they do about it once it's identified.
Or
So
It's
hire
because,
more
like I said,
opt in or
people.
opt out?
There's going to be wording or a trend or something that maybe is a cult, right? That they all kill each other or they go do some cult shit, but it's got a benign name like the flower grouping, like you
Well-
just don't know to look for it if it's never been identified as a problem. And so therefore, I lean towards protection for a company like Google. But then if I'm the Supreme Court, we start looking at recommendations for law to say what your obligation is to self-police. What is what's reasonable in that regard?
My thing is, if I'm on Google or a company like this, if people want to use my services, I make them indemnify me from any liability if they want to use my product, and that's how you get around this.
Well,
Well, I suspect there's
and
a
they
lot
probably
of that
already.
in the shit.
I was going to say they're probably already doing it now anyway.
Right.
Yeah, and nobody reads it.
I mean, how many times have you seen like the user agreement has been updated and you're like, yep.
Yep, click.
Let me read that. Not.
I actually do read them. Thank you. I enjoy it. I want to know what changes they've made. And sometimes, I shit you not, sometimes I don't sign it and I move to a different product, or I just don't use that product anymore.
If only they would give us patch notes.
Yeah.
Mm.
So,
If only they would help against cheaters.
has anybody here ever uploaded material to YouTube?
No. I
Okay.
think you have,
Grinch?
right?
Nope.
Mac?
Not that I'm legally
No.
allowed to talk about.
Okay. Well, I have. And there are some
Was it
things
smoked
that,
meat related?
yeah,
Sure,
probably was.
we'll go with that.
But they do ask there are certain questions in terms of your audience and things like that, in terms of when you're uploading, is it suitable for children, things like that. Go ahead.
Yeah,
What?
when you upload, so I have it, at work before uploaded apps to the Google Play Store.
Okay.
And yeah, there is a huge long laundry list of things you have to, does your app include this? Does your app track that? Does your app, do you want to give consent for this? So to your point, yeah, Google is doing a lot of stuff on the back end.
To try to
help that.
mitigate certain
just
things.
not, I mean, there's only so much they can do, I guess.
Right. Ultimately, Haas, yes, I think they should be held responsible if they knowingly knew and didn't change anything. But again, ultimately, do I have hope that any of that would be the case? No, because as I cited, gun manufacturers are never held responsible for the fact that they have created a deadly weapon, or something that can be used for deadly purposes and has been millions of times.
Well, then, okay. So
yes, I would absolutely 100%
Afghanistan could
hold
come back
shovel
and sue the United
manufacturers
States
responsible.
for creating tanks.
I'm sorry, say that again.
All these countries we go to war with could come back and try and sue the United States for creating, weapons of mass destruction.
Well, no, if those weapons are used for the use in which they were intended, a military function and so forth.
What do you think a gun's intended for? To kill something.
A military, right. And if it's used in a military role, I'm okay with it. But if you're carrying it on the fucking street in a Walmart and you decide to brandish it to threaten me, then I have a problem with it.
Oh, I agree with that. That's not what the purpose of a gun is, to threaten you.
No, no, but that's what people do. So,
but I just
I don't want to get off topic in terms of talking about a gun.
do.
But sorry.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
I just say, I mean, I'll say flat out, you can't undo 230.
No,
I firmly believe
you have to
the internet,
tweak 230.
The internet will like go into absolute upheaval without that protection.
It'd be fun
And
to
it's
watch.
shit that I'm not even smart enough to know ask questions about. Like, I'm reading this article about GitHub, where you use open software and collaborate
Open source. Yep.
to create
open
all
source
the
club.
backside of things, that help them run. And if that can't run, by the way, GitHub did contribute to Microsoft's amicus brief explaining what would happen from their perspective, and they're contributing basically 100 billion to the US economy annually. Like, that's the kind of shit we don't even understand that would be impacted. And I think these justices know that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, again, to quote Ellen Kagan, she's like, you don't have the 9 smartest internet experts up here. That's not why we got these jobs. So
Right.
I think they're ultimately going to just put out something that recommends additional guidance or rails or changes, but broadly leave it as it is.
I mean, no
See, I
offense,
think
but
that's a
Amy Coney
cop-out,
Barrett
though.
doesn't strike me as intelligent about anything, and yet she's going to be allowed to rule on this.
Because I think, okay, fine, they're not the 9 smartest people about the internet, but they're the legal minds that should be, dealing with this. So they need to bring in the 9
right people.
Smartest people
Well,
about the internet
I
to help inform them.
But
Well-
I mean, Haas knows this better than I do, and I don't even know shit about this. But you only
Does that
get
ever
like
stop
so
us?
much time to do oral arguments. It isn't like this case can go on in perpetuity. That's not
We're
how
getting
the
so
Supreme
much
Court
time.
works.
No, it's not. But Supreme Court works a little bit differently. And they did interview the two guys who created the two. I think it was one Republican and one Democrat, with the help of committees and stuff that created
The Decency Act.
the Decency Act.
Yes.
Yeah, and they did interview them on what their intents were, and the process they used, and why they decided to word it the way they did.
Hopefully they interviewed Al Gore too.
I was going to say,
started the internet.
that's who you need.
Yeah, they wanted to know how to spell the word potato, right?
Right. He could tell you what's going to happen. I mean, he wrote the code for the internet.
Exactly. And it's funny because a lot of this deals with like social media applications and things like that. You're like, Grinch, you don't really use social media. I don't either. So is
YouTube not kind of social media?
No, well, it is,
but I'm
it's
smart
also
enough
the
to
second
understand.
largest search engine.
Right. And that's
out there
how,
right now.
And I understand the importance of businesses getting in front of people that
Right.
are oriented by zip code and other metadata that allows me to know there's like in my Google feed, there's a new restaurant nearby, or that an article as it relates to Pinehurst is, I don't want to know about fucking Idaho. You know what I mean? Like,
Why not?
I want shit that's relevant to me, which it learns over time.
Right.
That's
Based
just
on your
for
search
convenience. There's also, I guess where I'm going with this is you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. There's a lot of goodness that comes from finding other people that you can collaborate with that are like-minded.
Unless you're going to shoot up a bistro in Paris together.
By the act of a group, a small group. To me, that's that's like the classic, you legislate to the anecdote instead of legislating to what broadly works.
And I legislate to the masses, not to the extreme group.
Well, and I've heard people make this argument, and I understand philosophically, our whole government is based on protecting the weak, the small, at equal level to the powerful, is what I do.
Really? Because I don't feel that way.
I just think that sounds great as a philosophy.
In theory.
It's impractical
Right.
in practice. And I pray to God that I don't believe in, little g, that I'm never that guy who is under the wheel of justice going, I just got fucked, but yet the rest of society is like, we're cool. You know, so it's not that I can't empathize. Like I said, with the death penalty, I totally get it. If you're the Gonzalez family, and I apologize to Tamne family. I know I'm saying
Tamne or
Tamne. I get it. I do.
Yeah.
I feel like an asshole for saying it.
Yeah.
It's just, I would do the exact same thing they're doing, I guess.
And ultimately, and I preface this at the very beginning, and I said this is something that hits a little close to home because here we have a show and we do espouse our own opinions about topics, but we are on multiple platforms. And if those platforms then get held responsible for the shit we say, they may be like, yeah, we're not carrying you anymore. And then that changes the dynamic of us being able to do this, going, well, nobody's gonna put on our show because we're questionable in the material that we cover, and they don't necessarily agree with our politics and our views and our opinions. So they're like, we're not opening ourselves up to liability. So sorry, you can't host your material here. You're going to have a lot of people going, well, fuck, now what do I do? Not just the big businesses that have to cover themselves from liability, but you're going to have the content providers going, where do I put shit?
On the flip side,
my living on this.
I might even take a step back and say, wait a minute, do I want to be involved in this anymore?
Right.
From a standpoint of, because we've said it from day one, right? We're four guys just shooting the shit here, right? We don't claim to be experts on anything.
We're flinging poo to see what sticks.
We're experts on not.
We're shooting our shit. As I mistakenly said to begin with. So yeah, I mean, again, use your fucking brain. That's what you have it for.
Right.
Be semi-intelligent and do some research, and
because
be thoughtful.
Yeah, we're discussing the fact that the big tech will suffer potentially on this ruling, but it's also going to be the little person that's going to suffer.
Society's going to suffer.
Because the content creators is who I'm referring to, because they're going to be very careful about who they carry, since they're now responsible for all the content, if that's the way the ruling goes. And you're going to have people that make a living off of their content going, I can now no longer make a fucking living.
Mm-hmm.
Burger King, here I come to flip burgers.
Yeah,
when I used to game 8 hours a day and put it on YouTube and make a ton of money, now YouTube won't carry me because I say dumb shit, or they're going to have to reorganize their business model as content creators.
Well,
and I'll say it, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. Not everybody should
but
out there be saying dumb shit. Not everybody
That's
should have
true.
a fucking
megaphone.
a megaphone or a soapbox.
But
and
that's
wants
what
to
the internet
shout
is
stupid
to
fucking
some
Right.
shit.
extent.
But it
And
would
that's
be
part of the problem, right? That's why this needs to be resolved. This needs to be updated and amended and fixed.
and we
You
haven't
go,
quite,
Grinch.
well, we haven't quite had an example of this, but I would wager significant money it's happened. That you've probably had people collaborate through like the PlayStation Network.
Yeah.
Because it is a microphone system. And I
Yeah.
get you. It's like, hey, I know another guy. We're going to get in party chat. And now we can talk on what we believe to be a secure system.
Well, it doesn't even
That's
have to be.
collaborating on a platform.
Yeah, it
Right.
doesn't
But
even have to be
that
a
isn't-
microphone system. I mean, it can just be even just
Yeah,
you know,
it could
WhatsApp.
Right. And that's why
know?
I say, can they definitively
I bet
prove
it happens on Discord.
Google is the reason that attack happened?
I don't
And I
see how you
know
prove
they're
it.
going after
No,
the
you can't
algorithm.
prove
The
it.
algorithm is the whole key to this case, right? Because absent that, there's no way to prove it. But they're saying it helped like-minded people find each other. My argument is that it probably could or would have happened by other means.
I think that's exactly the point, right? It was going to happen one way or the other because, somebody that's, dedicated enough is going to find a way to do whatever it is they want to do.
All right. I want to ask you a follow-up question. Should there be an international law that governs all this, not a U.S. law?
What would be the body that would go?
Yeah,
through?
I was going to say who governs
United
that?
Nations?
But they can't.
Who
pass
governs
law.
that?
They do agreements.
NATO?
and then you start falling under like diplomatic and foreign relations
I
agreements.
mean, I think
versus-
you would also have to create a new
I'd say
body
it's
that
a
would
body
have
that doesn't exist.
parts of every country that wants to be a part of it.
right. Because
So
I think
it's new NATO, right? For
Well-
just the
well-
internet.
well, actually, it's not even necessarily new NATO. It's more like what was the Mexico, Canada, United States agreement under Clinton?
NAFTA.
NAFTA, or the one that was going to be done for the Asian market.
But
they
it
got all that headwind against it. And that's really
Yeah,
more
right.
what it is. It's agreements that have legal underpinnings.
it can't
support
be
it.
can't be small agreements, right? Because the internet is worldwide.
Right.
So I mean, it has to be a global.
Community
and-
that
And how are
sets
you
the
gonna get
standard?
China involved in any of that, right?
I tell you, I get China involved,
they're
you
gonna-
lock them the fuck out if they don't agree. I mean, I know Huawei used to be a very big phone and network,
Oh yeah,
and they've taken a nosedive because of all the information they were gathering and using against people.
yeah. Well,
So people
you know
stopped
what?
buying their products, and they're basically crashed and burned. And then COVID, of
Everybody's
course,
still
but-
playing on TikTok. So
Yeah, but then
I'm not,
how do
you?
you
no, I
weigh-
know a lot of people are though.
how do you weigh the is it all equal power shared? Like when you look at certain things like US and
2/5.
China hold a lot of sway at the international level. And what is it, United Nations or whatever, NATO, wherever it is. Do all countries that participate in a web agreement
Does
have
Austria
equal
get the
say
same amount of vote as
that a China
the US,
does?
right? Or a China? Yeah.
China's got
Well,
$1 billion plus or whatever, and
I mean, not to get too far
nation
in the
gets one.
weeds,
Every,
but-
every nation gets one vote.
Well, right now, most likely, if I'm correct on this, if Austria is part of the EU would negotiate on behalf of all of its charter
Yeah.
members.
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
But
But
on the
right,
flip side, you're
mean,
going to have
So we suddenly have a
countries
FIFA.
like US and China, or I'm sorry, Russia and China, who are not going to agree with anything that the US wants to do, and vice versa. So you're never going to get any laws passed at an international level
They
well,
might,
when
this
right.
is
talking about the
involved.
internet.
And I put it in the same category as like the protections. I mean, we simultaneously want to protect our companies, right? So
Mhm.
I think of the whole balloon incident where we blacklisted, 5 companies in one institution or whatever it was. And China in turn said they were going to like sue Raytheon and Lockheed Martin for arms sales to Taiwan. And it's like, in what venue are you going to sue them? Now we know there's like venues for like The Hague, for certain
International law,
crimes,
right.
like Bosnia Herzegovina and that kind of thing, like where you have genocide and so forth. But, international business law has a whole lot of other aspects associated with based on where the company resides, where they file and all that jazz. And I'm a babe lost in the woods.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to
I'm
unpack
irrelevant,
there.
Donnie.
and again, it's one of those things in terms of times. I want to keep us on the straight and narrow in terms of time, so we can always revisit this because this ruling is going to be coming down, and I'd love to revisit this topic once that ruling's out, and we can kind of gauge where
Unpack
we
what
believe
that
things
is.
might go. Right.
Well, now
Haas,
you're assuming that after that ruling comes out, we'll still be able to post this
Well,
podcast.
Well, I
That's
did think I
true.
saw, and maybe Haas, I don't know if I saw something different, that they hope to rule before July.
So
I saw
I went to the docket to see if there was some kind of I wanted to see what the actual caseload looked like. I mean, holy crap, there's been so many filings just in 2023. Like it's ridiculous. And this isn't Gonzalez versus Google. The most recent entry says February 21, 2023, argued for petitioners, blah, blah, blah. And then for the respondent, this and this. There were arguments on the 21st. And it says hopeful to have a decision within the next week to 3 months.
Okay.
So-
Well, it depends on how long deliberations take and writing up their
Position
opinions.
papers or
Yeah.
opinions.
Yep.
Yeah, because I mean, look, I mean, they're going to take time to decide it and talk to and get the facts straight, and then they've got to write. They've got to draft their opinion papers, right? And then they've got to, if there's a dissension, there's got to be that, and so
Yeah.
I don't think we'll see anything quick. I mean, the Supreme Court generally doesn't move quick.
And again, it's
Nor
definitely
do I think it
something-
should.
No, it's definitely
Right.
something I'd like to revisit. But, in terms of time here, I just want to be respectful of that. And there is a lot to unpack, and we can go on. And that's why I think why a follow-up episode is going to be absolutely necessary to this particular topic. But, where it goes, hard to say. We don't have a decision. What they're looking at in terms of their argument, there's a lot there. There's a lot to consider, the ramifications, how this is going to affect the major tech companies that host a lot of these things, how it's going to affect the content creators that are publishing material that, currently those providers are not being held responsible for, but potentially can be. But I'm going to go ahead and let's wrap this one up, gentlemen. I appreciate it as always. Anybody got any final thoughts before we bounce? No.
I do.
Yeah,
I do. I think, and I think I've kind of sort of tried to state this as well as I could over the last hour and change, is that it's a 30-year-old coming up on a 30-year-old
decision, 27 years.
And so it needs to be updated. It needs to be amended. It needs to be, course corrected and fixed and to current times. How exactly you go about doing that, I'm not entirely sure. That's well above my pay grade. But I do think, until these companies feel like they have some liability or have a dog in the fight, I mean, in my opinion, it'd be something similar as Big Pharma not being liable for the medicines they give people. If they knew something was directly killing somebody, they didn't do something.
They should be responsible.
Right. So these companies that are hosting this information, they have the tools and the resources to be able to course correct and get updated. And I think I wish it didn't necessarily be liable. I don't know, but something needs to evolve and change.
Agreed. 100%. All right, gentlemen. Well, I appreciate it as always. It's been the hour went by quick, hour plus went by fast, as it always tends to do here in the studio. Obviously love hearing everything you guys have to say, and I do appreciate your time. For all you listeners at home, feel free to check out our website at aspiriteddebate.com. You can check out all of the drinks that we have here. All of our shows are in the vault. I don't even know. There's 100 and something now, 170 something. There's a lot. So maybe not as much content as YouTube is putting up a day, but nonetheless, there's a lot.
But
to
we're
go
doing
out
all
and
right.
listen to. Yeah,
Right? I
we're
mean, this train's barreling down the tracks.
Nearly 3 years worth of content out there. So feel free to go and give it a listen. If that's not good enough for
3
you,
years of this.
Hey, if you get
fellas?
a question about a topic, we can be our own algorithm.
That's
and
it.
recommend an episode back.
That's it. And we do hold ourselves responsible. Look, at the end of the day, we do kind of hold ourselves
legal says no, we don't.
No, I don't.
We hold
Legal
ourselves
says-
responsible not to put out misinformation.
Okay, there we go.
That's what I'm saying.
Legal says we do the best we can as human beings to do so,
Right.
to make
We
the
do
most
our due
informed
diligence.
decisions, to make due diligence and as best we can in real time.
Exactly. So you can drop us a line at the Four Horsemen at aspiriteddebate.com. Any drink you'd like us to try, a topic you'd like us to debate, please drop it there. We'd love to hear from you. If that's not good enough, movies. Mac has a list of movies. It is MacBottom 003, MacBottom 003 at gmail.com. Thankfully, he doesn't currently have to pay for that email. It's free and he checks it. So if you've got a movie you'd like him to watch, put it in that email and he will get it on his list. I don't even know where we're going with that list of movies. If we don't do something with it, what's the point?
I'm still working
so
on
let's
it.
make sure we
You got to add Cocaine Bear to that
Oh, yes,
list?
you do. Yes.
Well, no, because this is just
Old movies,
that I
older
haven't
movies he
watched
needs to
yet,
catch
so,
up
It's an instant classic.
Yeah,
It falls in
whatever
that
that
category.
fucking means. Gentlemen, as always, thank you so much. I appreciate doing this with you week in and week out. I love you guys. Can't wait to do this again next week. So thank you.
Love you guys.
Mhm.
Cheers.
Always fun. Prost.
The views, information, or opinions expressed during the A Spirited Debate podcast series or any affiliated podcast are solely those of the hosts or guests involved and do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations that the host or guests may or may not be associated with in a professional or personal capacity, unless explicitly stated. While guests are invited to listen, listeners acknowledge that they are not being provided professional advice from the podcast or its guests. The content within the parameters of A Spirited Debate podcast series or any affiliated podcast are for entertainment and educational purposes only. Any views or opinions are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, or individual.